How are you?
I'm very well.
Lovely. How did the lecture just go?
Yeah, very good, very good. You know, nice sort of gratifying response, lots of people in the place, and it's nice. It's always nice talking to a group of divers. It's always good fun.
Lovely. Okay, you left the Royal Marines to train as a marine biologist, is that correct?
I did. I left the Royal Marines in '96 and then went to Plymouth University for 3 years.
Okay, what was the reason? What actually prompted you to
I'd always wanted to do it, and it was quite interesting. It was a real dilemma for me in my time in the Marines that when I was thundering up a beach somewhere, I was always far more interested in what was living on the beach. I'd always wanted to do it, and it was a fantastic, very fulfilling thing to do because I was a little bit older as well. So obviously you understand a little bit more about the pleasure of learning and the pleasure of learning about the sea and all that. It was fantastic. I had a great 3 years.
Brilliant. And what do you think that the best and worst things about being a marine biologist actually is?
Well, I think there's a lot of extreme chuff talked about being a marine biologist. You know, we all have this idea that it's dolphins and sharks, and of course it's not. Marine biology is quite an intense science, and there's a lot of chemistry, statistics, things like that involved in it. So, of course, we have a mental image of what it's like, and the actuality, the reality of what it's like is fundamentally different. So, but it's very satisfying learning about the kind of building blocks of marine systems, and everything happens on a tiny, tiny level, not on a big level. And it's really interesting learning about that because we all know as divers a bit about dolphins and a bit about sharks and that sort of stuff. But learning what goes on lower down the food chain is really, really interesting. So.
And do you still get as much satisfaction doing it now as you did when you first started out?
Oh, 100%. I mean, the more you learn about it, the more you realise, the less you know about it, if you see what I mean. And there's a lifetime of learning out there in terms of marine biology, and we know nothing about the sea, and we've explored hardly any of it. So yeah, you know, it's a really open-ended science, and you could spend your entire life studying it and still know 2% of what goes on out there. So.
And what kind of advice would you give somebody who's actually interested in going into marine biology?
I'd say you need to be aware of, realistically, of what it is. It's not dolphin hugging and frolicking with, they call it charismatic megafauna. Witheringly, yeah. Charismatic megafauna basically means the animals that everyone's interested in are these big, exciting animals. And they're a tiny, tiny part of marine biology. So you need to be aware of that. But having said that, the rewards are fantastic. You work in some fantastic places with some really dedicated people, and it's very vocational. It takes over your whole life. So I'd really say if anyone wanted to get into it, you know, get stuck in, but be prepared for a lot of very serious science. Like I said, statistics packages, maths, chemistry, that sort of stuff. But the rewards at the end make it also worthwhile.
Brilliant. So. Okay. In your last series, you travelled the world, and in each episode, you featured your efforts to dive with a different creature or a particular species. What were your favourite, and what do you think was the hardest to find?
The favourite was probably the manta encounter. Now, I've dived with mantas before, but never with anything as intense as this particular encounter.
It was beautiful.
I mean, middle of nowhere, there's diving this big volcanic peak with these beautiful mantas circling it, and it's a very personal interaction. They were coming right up and looking you in the eye, and they plainly were interested in who I was, and it was fantastic. And the diving group, you know, who was in the diving group, they wanted to come in and have a look at us all, and that was great. And certainly the most intense encounter was the tiger shark dive. Again, one of the most beautiful animals you'll ever meet in the sea, but fairly hairy stuff, drifting along in these big currents with limited viz, with this amazing big predator coming in and having a good old look at you, and you ask yourself some fairly serious questions when you're in those sorts of situations. But no, it's super.
Excellent. And what one creature do you think has actually evaded you that you would really particularly like to see?
Oh, there's masses. I've never seen an oceanic white tip. It's one of the most charismatic sharks on Earth. I've never seen the big squid, the Humboldt squid. We're going to try and see those in the next show. Whales, we hardly saw any whales. So there's masses out there. You know, as I said, you could make 100 series of 10 programs and you wouldn't see, you know, 5% of what's actually out there.
Okay. Obviously, diving an extreme sport. Has there ever been a time when you feared for your own life whilst diving?
No, not really. I mean, the only time that I've really felt really, really scared was with the tiger shark thing, and a lot of that was due to ignorance. You know, I just didn't really know about the animals enough to know that basically they weren't interested in me, they were interested in the fish. That we had a big bait hanging in the water, and that's all they wanted, you know. So, and diving is, you know, it's an adventure sport and there's a risk involved, but I think if you're canny and you're careful and you listen to local people and you You do your checks and all that. And in sort of 20 years of diving, I've never really had a serious incident. Touch wood.
Touch wood.
Yeah, I've never really had a serious incident, and it's because I try and dive with the right people who really know what they're doing. And,
and
I'm a coward as well.